So let's get straight into it now. Robert, we understand that the AfCFTA was set up to increase intra-Africa trade. What exactly does this new milestone mean in terms of Namibia's contribution and integration in trade within the African continent?
Well, first of all, I should agree with you. It's a milestone indeed. And I should, first of all, congratulate our government, and in particular, our Honorable Minister of International Relations and Trade for taking leadership in that space. Indeed, this milestone is demonstrating that our country is committed to regional economic integration in Africa. You might recall that our intra-Africa trade currently accounts for only roughly 15 to 17% of Africa's total trade. But if you compare with other continents such as Asia, such as Europe, the intra-trade there really stands above 60 and 70% respectively. So Namibia participating directly in this implementation contributes to shifting the dynamics. Right. We are moving beyond SACU and SADC, and it's also a signal that Namibia is ready to integrate into a broader African economy. And this aligns with the African Union goals to double our economic, our trade by the year 2035.
Robert, you did highlight a very interesting point that you said about the trade within the African continent constitutes plus minus 15% of intra-Africa trade. Now, with what is going on from a geopolitical perspective and also the United States and with what's going on with AGOA also, which was a very interesting policy for trade or for allowing African countries to trade with the US, how significant really is the new milestones or the new achievements made within the African or within the AfCFTA, obviously in relation to Namibia and a lot of what's going on from a geopolitical perspective?
Look, it is really significant for us because if you look at the geopolitics that you just mentioned there, it's normally the African countries specifically or particularly individuals trading with the rest of the world. However, we do not trade with ourselves, amongst ourselves. And the implementation of the AfCFTA, it's quite opportune when all these revelations of the globalizations are happening.
Right. Now, as a country, Robert, we are on a multi-pronged economic development trajectory. What specific opportunities does trading under the AfCFTA present for Namibia? Because I understand that there's trade in goods and also there's trade in services. I think I read an article, if it's not today, it was yesterday, looking at of a bigger push for the trading in services and that being a bit more of a focus.
True, and I should agree with you. It's not only trade in goods, but it's also trade in services. But there is also a number of protocols that comes with the AfCFTA. But let me just mention this to you. Previously, and in many occasions, we have been told that Namibia is a very small economy. I mean, yes, but also a very small market. And if you look at SACU and SADC, we are still a very small market. Right. Despite the fact that in SADC alone, there is more than 350 plus minus potential consumers. However, the AfCFTA really offers Namibia access to a much more bigger market of over 1.4 billion people with a combination with a combined GDP approximately of 3.4 trillion in USD.
Right.
And that really indicates the purchasing power on the continent. So for a small and export-oriented economy like ours, this opens up an unprecedented opportunities in value-added exports, such as agro-processing, fisheries products, cosmetics, industrial goods. The list goes on.
Right.
The elimination of tariffs on 90% of goods will also make Namibian products more price competitive across the continent, encouraging industrial diversification and development within our economy. And it also then encourages the job creation, in that same space.
Right.
So, but just again to re-emphasize the opportunities, you might have heard about the Angola. Angola is just one of our neighboring countries. They are in SADC, but they do not participate in the SADC trading regime.
Right.
So they do keep their tariffs and customs duties in other terms. And previously, when our products goes to Angola, and I'm talking about premium products, for instance, your pasta, your beef, your beer, some horticulture products,
Right.
they attract between 40 and 60% in tariffs and customs duties.
Right.
But now Angola is part of the AfCFTA. That market is going to be open for Namibians and for Namibian made goods and products. Therefore, it is really an opportunity, not only for the government, but for the private sector in particular.
Robert, I want to put this to you. The narrative really that's out there, there's a bigger focus on trading in goods, and you did touch a bit on that in terms of the tariffs and custom duties, which go through that particular modality. But the trading in services, considering, for just to use an example, we have a fairly mature and very strong financial sector in the country comparatively. Yeah. And if we look at from a goods perspective, comparatively looking at then other economies like South Africa, and then you get some on East Africa and then North Africa. How we're going to be competing with I can even just argue and say that a little bit more advanced and mature product creating economies. So how does that bode for Namibia? Are we just climbing onto the bus and saying that our focus will be trade in goods, or are we really being intentional as a nation to look at other components within the AfCFTA, like, for example, playing on our strengths regarding the financial sector, for instance?
Look, I think 2 points from what you just said. Number one is the services sector. Yes, we already know that many of the service provider companies that are based in Namibia, these are not Namibian companies, right, and they are already here. So what we need possibly to consider is, will the other service provider companies coming from another African country coming to Namibia, will it really toughen the competition and put out our small players out of the game? No, right. That's number one. Number two, the narrative of competition in general. We hear from, time after time that if we open up our economy to our fellow African member states, the competition will, somehow put our SMEs particularly out of business. Right. And I don't think that narrative is entirely true. You know why? Because currently we are in SACO. We are a member of SACO. we have one of the most industrialized economies on the continent, South Africa. And our private sector is competing. That's number one. Number two, we as a country and through the SACU arrangements, we have a free trade agreement with the European Union. And this is, you are talking about some of the most highly industrialized economies in the world. Are they really putting our small and medium enterprises out of the of business? Not really, you know. So I think the narrative that you just alluded to is really unfounded.
Okay. Now, what could be some of the challenges, Robert, that Namibia can anticipate that may hinder the country from taking full advantage of these opportunities? And secondly, what type of remedial mechanisms can we put in place to fully take advantage of the opportunities that do exist within the AfCFTA context?
Well, there's a number of challenges, obviously, but the key ones really includes the limited productive capacity in the domestic market. There is obviously inadequate trade-related infrastructures, and these challenges are not unique to Namibia. It's a continent-wide challenges. And thirdly, there is obviously a lot of non-tariff barriers that we are expecting in a form of different product standards. There will be some sort of customs delays here and there. There is fragmented transport corridors on the continent, and those really pose very serious threats to the success of trade. Namibia must ensure, I should emphasize that we need to ensure a timely implementation of the AfCFTA digital trade protocol, for instance, because this really will assist many of our traders, more particularly the small and medium enterprises, to reach far markets on the continent. Right. So the digital trade infrastructure should be put in place in order to propel the e-commerce activities of the private sector.
Right. Now, we understand that this week, Namibia officially launched its inaugural export consignment under the African Continental Free Trade Area framework, with Namibia salt being the first commodity to be exported under this new agreement. Now, what are some of the other products the country is expected or anticipating to export moving forward?
Well, Namibia do have in place a very big export basket. However, I should agree that our export basket is less diversified because it consists more of agricultural products, it consists more of minerals, it consists more of fish and fish products. But I should also mention here that we do have some very unique products that are realizing an increased demand on the continent. We have a lot of beef, and you should have been following the case of the Northern Cordon Veterinary Fence. On the northern side of that fence, there's many farmers who do not have international access to international markets. And the AfCFTA implementation have created a platform for that beef, for the small stock meat from, say, sheep and goats to go to countries like your DRC, Nigeria, Ghana, and the Central Africa, where that meat has a very high demand, I should say. There's a lot of agro-processed goods, the cosmetic oils, are also a very strong contenders given the growing African urban markets. So there's quite a number of products that are really are demanded, from the continental point of view.
Now, the AfCFTA also presents Namibia as a country and various businesses, businesses and opportunity to really enhance competitiveness. And we did touch a bit on competition earlier on when we looked at other international, or rather domestic. When I say domestic, I mean within the African context. Competing with South Africa and other countries that are based in Northern Africa. Now, how crucial is the aspect of competitiveness, and really how do we position Namibia in a way that we can set ourselves apart from every other country that is participating within the AfCFTA?
A number of things needs to happen, definitely. Competitiveness is at the heart of success under the AfCFTA. It is not just about price, but it is also about the supply consistency. It's about the reliability of supply. It is about product quality and standards. It is also about the regulatory compliance of traders. All these aspects needs to be taken into account. Namibia must improve, and I should say we are having a very good logistics space. We need to invest more in trade-related digital infrastructure, for instance, which will assist our traders to take advantage and be competitive on the continent. We also need to somehow scale up our skills development to support the export readiness. Right. There must be initiatives such as to incentivize the private sector effort in order to boost our production capacity, and a number of things, again, in that space needs to be considered, such as, all the factors that increases the production cost. We're talking about the utility cost. Your energy should be incentivized. We need to maintain and improve on our transport networks. But the most important thing, again, here is about we need to create industrial clusters. And this can be developed through the creation and the putting together the special economic zones, because I think that tool will be very key for us to climb the ladder. So all these aspects needs to be covered, but again, from the policy point of view, government needs to come on board and incentivize the manufacturers and producers. We need to put our house in order to create the special economic zones, because other countries are gonna send their products to Namibia, of which those products are incentivized through the special economic zones and manufacturers' incentives, for instance.
Right. We are running out of time, but I want to get this one to you. Robert, where to from here? Because what advice essentially would you give to Namibian businesses in terms of readying themselves or leveraging this door that has been, quite frankly, been opened to the African market?
Well, the Namibian businesses really should make it their priority to start to understand the AfCFTA agreements in details. Right. And it is also the responsibility of government to educate the private sector about the trading rules under the AfCFTA. There's a number of things that needs to happen. The private sector needs to understand things like product rules of origin. They need to engage in market intelligence, and participate in trade missions. building of e-commerce capabilities. The governments and institutions like really the NIPDB, we should be offering the export-ready programs, and there should be resources deliberately dedicated to the export-ready program and the export promotion program of the country. So it is really important to collaborate either through joint ventures, cooperatives, in order to scale up the production and meet the cross-border demands. So the AfCFTA is not just a trade agreement, but it is also an opportunity for industrializing Namibia and the continent at large.
Robert Simon, thank you very much for your time.